Have you ever considered having another child? Hi, my name is Felice Gerwitz, and One More Child is my story of personal growth and a journey of faith. In this book, I share snippets of my life and the reasons for the choices I made early on in marriage to limit our family size. However, the Lord had other plans, and eventually we made a decision to have more children, and this changed my life forever. I invite you to read One More Child, which is available on Amazon in print and Kindle.
This is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network. Welcome to the Vintage Homeschool Mom Show. Your host, Felice Gerwitz, is an author, a publisher, and your radio show host. She will encourage, educate, and inspire you with answers to your most pressing questions from homeschool, marriage, parenting, and much more. Felice loves to equip moms to live a Christian life because every moment counts. Be sure to visit her website at mediaangels.com. And here's your host, Felice Gerwitz.
Hey everyone, and welcome. This is Felice Gerwitz with an episode of Vintage Homeschool Moms, and today I have a treat for you. And this is really special for me because I'm going to be introducing a fellow featured speaker. We did a one-week seminar online for women called Come Away, My Beloved. I was a speaker on this amazing week that we had with Christian women, just really encouraging them, coming beside them and alongside them in their faith journey. And so you can find out how you can get those videos and audios on my website. If you go to mediaangels.com, just click on the link for our classes and seminars. And so I was really blessed to meet one of my co-speakers on this week, as well as meeting her in person at a conference, my Ultimate Christian Communicators Conference that we hosted in Tampa, Florida this year. And Michelle was one of the participants in that conference. It was really great to meet her. And so I'm going to introduce you to her as well. And the topic today is Creating for Christ. You can find the show notes at vintagehomeschoolmoms.com. And today, my special guest is Michelle Ruschman. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi, Felice. What a wonderful way to start the morning. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm excited as well. And I was just taken aback by some amazing jewelry that you create. And I actually have one of your crosses that was gifted to me by you. You're such a sweetie. And so I wanted to highlight that aspect, as well as just share a little bit with our listeners about, your faith journey, and also how you began your business, because I know my listeners are sometimes thinking, gosh, what can I do to make some extra money? And there's a whole thing about, work-at-home moms, and you have a daughter, which I want you to share about her as well. But just share your journey, a little bit about yourself and how you got started.
Well, one of the things that a lot of people don't know about me is that I just came to Christ in 2009. And I have been clinging to him since then. And, I had actually started my jewelry business a year before as a cultural expression. I'm a first generation Filipino immigrant. I got to the United States when I was 2 years old. And it was not until I became an adult that I'd heard about our original writing system called baybayin. And back in early 2008, late 2007, I had been looking for a piece of jewelry that featured this writing system on it, this baybayin script, and couldn't find it anywhere. And I was determined that they were going to be Christmas gifts that year. And so I ended up learning the script and how to translate Tagalog to baybayin. And it ended up being a business. People really responded to it. Especially in the Filipino American community, where we were trying to kind of hold on to different roots in our heritage. And I was starting to sell internationally through the Eskrima community, which is Filipino martial arts. And I got a really nice little following from it. People were very kind about that. But then leading up to 2009, I was really wanting to explore, reconnecting with God. And I had kind of let go of him when I was 19 years old, and feeling like I needed to disconnect from religion. And I thought that meant I needed to disconnect from God. I didn't, in my, kind of teenage mind, I thought that God and religion were intertwined, so that if I let go of one, one would let go of the other. But the thing that was so beautiful was that even though I let go of God, he never let go of me. And so when I started kind of re-exploring that, he had been waiting for this prodigal daughter to come home. He had been watching the horizon. And when I was ready to go back to church, I ended up, I remember just, having my daughter in the car, and we were on our way to church for the first time in a long time. And I just started to cry. I had just come back from a Joel Osteen event, which is a whole story in itself. But I had promised God when I got back home, I would try church. And as I was pulling in to this church for the first time, I was crying in my car. My 3-year-old is in the back. My husband is not on this journey with me at this time. And I was like, Lord, you've got to help me pull it together. I'm going to go into this church full of strangers looking crazy, because I was just, I was bawling. And I just remember in that moment, the only thing that I could register in my mind and in my heart was, despite your best efforts, I found you. And when your God speaks that into your heart after you've been lost for so long, there's nothing else to do but to follow him and to say yes, not knowing what that would mean. But I was determined to find out. And so with that in my heart, that's when my jewelry kind of started refocusing itself more toward a faith-based expression. And I went to a Christian conference early on in my reconnecting with the Lord. And I had wanted to purchase a kiln, and my dad had passed away from cancer. So I wanted to kind of honor him by purchasing a kiln and having some longevity, in his memory, in creating through this kiln. And so a very kind glass artisan allowed me to kind of apprentice with her, if you will, and meet with her and learn how to work with glass, dichroic glass specifically. And I was terrible at it. I ruined so many pieces. I had no idea what I was doing, what my voice was, because she had said, I'll agree to train you, but you've got to find your own voice in this expression. So when I went to the conference, the leader started singing a song with the words "beautifully broken" in the lyrics. And in that moment, God was like, that's the ministry in this glass. So take all the pieces that you thought were mistakes, break them again, reconfigure them into the cross, fire them again, and tell this story of dichroic glass not being moved into its brilliance, except for the fact that you've put it through the fire. Because it's, it doesn't look anything like its finished product until it's been through the fire. And that's kind of what so much of our testimony is about, is surviving this fire and coming into our brilliance through the pain that we thought held us back, actually was the thing that propelled us forward. And so that's the message in most of my jewelry, is just, I want to encourage people that through Jesus, they can be made anew. And it's the very thing that brought them pain that is actually what's being used by the Lord.
That's beautiful. That really is. And so give us your website again.
Yeah, it's Michelle
if we mentioned
Ruschman. Yeah, it's michelleruschman.com. And my husband is German descent, so there's a silent C in there. So it's Michelle, Michelle, Ruschman, Ruschman.com.
Wonderful. And so have you had, any problems in trying to fit your business in with home life? Because I know I've struggled with that for years. And one of the things, actually, before we went on air, I was sharing with you, that my husband and I set some parameters where, evenings are his. He gets home fairly early from work. He's self-employed, but it's in the construction industry or even with home inspections. And so he can be home anywhere from 3 to, 4 in the afternoon. And so I try to really work my schedule now that my kids are grown and they're in college now, the younger ones, and so that I have time to spend with him. Mm-hmm. And so I just wondered if you had any of that sort of thing, especially with your daughter and everything.
Absolutely. I have to say I'm very protective of my weekends. I've got lots of layers of work that I do. And so, I tell people you have me anywhere from 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday, but my weekends I belong to my family. And I tend to be a very early riser. If I'm going to have a talk with the Lord, I tend to do it like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And what's interesting is I'll kind of wake up, have that time with the Lord. That's when I tend to do my writing or get my ideas for art. And then I might take a quick nap again between like 5 and 6 before I get up with my daughter. So I actually, it actually generates all this extra time during the day if you can, but I don't necessarily recommend that for everybody because if you're having to drag yourself out of bed, that's no good either, but I'll pop up for a little bit and then go back to sleep. But yeah, I'm very protective of my weekends, and my family and we love our road trips because that's when we really get time to connect and talk, and because they're very busy too. My daughter is very busy and she's active serving at our church as a bass player for the student worship team. My husband has small groups, loves disc golf, and works full time, of course. And so we're all very busy in our own, separate work and ministry and responsibilities. So the weekends are really when we get to come together.
Oh, that's wonderful. And so, just having those parameters and, setting them aside. I know when your kids are little, it's difficult. And, and it's amazing how, God does that. He wakes us up. I remember waking up at 3 o'clock when I didn't have kids, and I felt like, I would wake up and think, well, there's somebody. I wouldn't get up though, Michelle. I'd like my sleep. But I would just lay there and just say, okay, Lord, who needs prayer? And I would be praying for whoever popped into my mind. And then like you would talk to somebody a week or two later and they would just say, oh my gosh, I was going through this really hard time. And so, it just kind of was confirmation of who needed prayer and that sort of thing. And so, and that's very important, I think, with any business, with anything you do, to have that time with the Lord, because that really is the fuel behind everything that we do. I always laugh when people say, oh gosh, you're such a great businesswoman. And I said, well, no, because most of the time I turn down the really lucrative things and I have to have a cause or a mission or a purpose before I'm enthusiastic and excited about it. Even when I talk to people about podcasting, I'm like, I'm going to be coming up on my 400th episode, and you kind of think, oh my gosh, what else could you possibly have to say, Felice? But a lot of times I will look and search my own. I've got to together a spreadsheet of my different topics, and I'll do a search, and I'm always surprised when there's not something that come to me that I needed to talk about, that I hadn't already done something about it. And of course, lots of times I already have. But, but passion is what really, and purpose is really what keeps you going. And I just love, this episode title of Creating for Christ, because that really seems to be the focus. Also, I wanted you to share, because our 1 week live event is over, but those videos are available for sale, and Michelle also has those available on her website. But I wanted you to share a little bit about your topic with our listeners, like what you spoke about.
So my topic was about Jesus being safe. And what was so interesting, I was so grateful to be a participant at your conference because, I knew that I had to be there, but I wasn't sure what my purpose was. I knew, the work that I'd done as an artist and a writer and a jewelry artisan. But in my mind, all of those different pieces were kind of fragmented. And but that conference just brought everything together. And, it was one of the things that we had to come up with was, why, give me the pitch, right? Give me the pitch. And I didn't have it. In one of the workshops we tried to do it, I did not have it. And, and we've talked about how I've been, I got saved in 2009. And here we are in 2020. And so that's where the pitch was trying to come from. But then as I prayed about it and talked with the Lord about why couldn't I come up with what I wanted to say about the work we do together, he said, this is, you're trying to talk about 2009 to 2020, but your pitch, the way that everything that you do, the umbrella of what you do is really a question of how come it took so long for you to get to 2009. And and so when he said that, it just kind of broke open something in me. And he said, I want you to tell my girls that Jesus is safe. And I remember just weeping that was the message that he was wanting for me to share, because it was the message that he'd been wanting me to get this whole time. And, my background is that when I was little, I was molested as a child. And of course those things don't happen to you without leaving a scar of some sort. And it's not visible. It was absolutely emotional. But it was, walls go up to protect yourself, so that you can manage the rest of your life. And, but here we were, people were asking me, people were telling me that Jesus loves you, but I didn't feel lovable. People were saying Jesus saves, but what I needed to know in my own spirit and in my own journey is Jesus safe? And so it just came about, it all came together in the conference with you that everything that I have done, every word that I have written, every piece of jewelry that I've made, almost every piece of art that I've done has been this journey of communicating to myself and to the women around me that Jesus is someone that we can rest in, someone that is a gentleman, so everything that I do is about reassuring women that Jesus is safe. And, as a professional Christian writer and an artist, my whole goal is to guide women into a friendship with Jesus, who is this gentleman that many of us have been looking for. And so that's really what the talk was about,
Well, I love it. I love that, things came together for you for the conference, because it makes my, all of the planning and all of the behind the scenes stuff that we do to get these things out there, it makes it worth it. It's that whole thing, if it blessed one person. So thank you so much for sharing that, Michelle, and also your topic. And then you have a book coming out, Jesus and Me. That's not out. Have you written any other books? Or is that out?
I wrote a small group study for my small group years ago called The Answer to Romans 8:31, and which was about we as Christians, we kind of look at who could come at us in that in Romans 8:31, it's like who could come against us. But the concern was, well, do we do that to ourselves? And so the small group study was really kind of an encouragement about how we can fortify one another and not be the enemy from within. And and so my small group was very gracious in kind of moving through that study with me. And then Jesus and Me what is a 40 conversations, 40 prayers, and 40 paragraphs of encouragement that I had, with Jesus this past year. I'd been kind of having these ongoing conversations with him, but then I woke up one day and, the Lord was like, bring a pencil. And so I just started recording the exchanges that we'd had. And so the conversations that we'd had kind of touched on all kinds of things, between parenting, my managing my health, my relationship issues, ties with my family, managing my time, my work schedule. We touched on so many things in these 40 conversations. And so that's what I'm hoping. We don't have an agent or a publisher yet. I'm still finishing it. But I'm hoping at some point, that we'll be able to get this published and share with it. Because I think that there's a universal language, even though that there's different personal experiences between women. I think that there is a universal language and kind of common experience that we have between, working women and being moms and trying to be girlfriends to one another and, trying to figure out who we can be in our best and how we manage it in our worst, with Jesus coming alongside.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that because, that sounds like a book that would be really well received. Well, Michelle, it has been such a pleasure to have you on today and to share with my listeners a little bit about you and your business. So, guys, go check out those crosses. They are unbelievably phenomenal. So if you go to michelleruschman.com, and again, that's MichelleRuschman.com, and she has a jewelry link at the top, and just go take a look, and you will be so blown away. And they make great gifts for people, and you can get one for yourself. They're just beautiful. So again, Michelle, thank you so much for coming on. Hopefully we'll have you back again when this book comes out.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm going to receive that as a blessing, and hopefully, I'm counting on the Lord working on things around corners I have yet to turn.
Awesome, wonderful. I love that. All right, take care, Michelle.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And guys, you can find the show notes for today's episode. Go to vintagehomeschoolmoms.com. We're creating for Christ. Take care, everyone. God bless, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Vintage Homeschool Mom Show. Visit Felice at MediaAngels.com and TheVintageHomeschoolMoms.com. Vintage Homeschool Moms is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network.